Here is the English translation of the story. Greetings to all of our listeners. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight on the Hung Ghost Stories channel, we invite you to tune in and listen to this tale. Late that afternoon in Bong Village, a light, quick rain was falling. Master Vong, a blind fortune teller, was sitting inside his house when someone approached his gate. Though he could not see, his hearing was incredibly sharp. At the slightest sound, he immediately called out, "Who is it? What brings you to my home?" If it were a local from Bong Village, they would immediately state their name and purpose. But this person remained silently standing there. I asked, "Who is there and what is your business?" The stranger still did not reply. It wasn't until he stepped inside and sat opposite Master Vong that he finally spoke. "Please forgive my abruptness. I am a traveler from afar, and I came here today to ask you for a reading." Through the man's voice, Master Vong deduced that he was quite elderly. He also faintly sensed a hidden internal strength in his tone. "What exactly do you want to know?" "It is up to you. My past, my future, or my destiny. Tell me whatever you can see. As long as it is accurate, I will make sure you are well compensated." Hearing this somewhat arrogant tone, Master Vong did not reply. He quietly turned to the altar, lit a match, and offered incense. As the incense smoke wafted into the air, creating a hazy atmosphere, he took 3 old copper coins from a worn bamboo tube, clamped them in the palm of his hand, muttered a prayer, and dropped them onto a ceramic plate. The 3 coins clinked onto the plate. Master Vong used his bony fingers to feel each face of the coins to interpret the hexagram. Suddenly, his hand stopped, and his expression turned perplexed. Disbelieving his own senses, he hurriedly tossed the 3 coins again, and then again. Sweat began to bead on his forehead. Usually, just by casting the coins, the interpretation would immediately appear in his mind. But now, for some reason, all that enveloped his mind was a thick, deep, pitch-black void. The 8 characters were unresponsive, and the hexagram was completely blank. The man sitting opposite him seemed to not exist at all, or something was concealing him, making it impossible for Master Vong to see through. Master Vong turned to the man and spoke honestly. "I have practiced this profession for decades and have never encountered such an anomaly. The hexagram is obscured by yin and yang. I cannot see anything about you." The man did not seem surprised. Instead, he laughed heartily. "Seeing nothing is the best outcome. If you had stubbornly tried to peer into the secrets of heaven just now, I fear your old life would have been forfeit." Master Vong knew he had hit a wall. His voice lowered. "Who exactly are you? What is your purpose here?" The stranger gave a gentle smile and lowered his voice. "I won't hide it from you. My surname is Deep. Deep Tian Quan. I am from the Deep family in the Yunnan region of China." Master Vong pondered. "The Deep family. I have never heard that name. It's not surprising you haven't. Our family over there is not large, and our Taoist arts are only passed down to direct descendants, never to outsiders. I am the 9th generation descendant of the Deep family. If that's the case, you didn't travel all this way just to mock a blind old fortune teller like me, did you?" "Of course not. I came here this time on important business, to recover a lost family heirloom. By the time I arrived, it was getting dark, and I hadn't found a place to stay, so I boldly came to ask if I could spend the night at your house." "Is that all?" "That is all." Master Vong sighed in relief as if a heavy burden had been lifted. This man's magical cultivation was unfathomably deep. If he had evil intentions, not just Vong, but the entire Bong village would be hard-pressed to deal with him. "You flatter me. You may rest here tonight, though my house is just cramped and damp. It does not matter. I have traveled the 4 corners of the world and am used to sleeping under the stars. Having a place to lie down is already wonderful." Though he said that outwardly, deep down, Master Vong still maintained his guard. This man came from afar, his background was unclear, and he possessed profound magical arts. Who knew if he harbored any dark schemes? When night fell, the rain outside began to drizzle, and the wind rustled the banana leaves behind the house. The night had already deepened, but the strange guest on the bed was still awake. Wrapped in a thin blanket, his eyes were glued to an ancient book. The yellowed words appeared under the dim light of an oil lamp. It wasn't until the early hours of the morning that he closed the book, laid down on the bed, and dozed off for a while. When the rooster's crow signaled the morning, he woke up to find Master Vong brewing tea at the table. "You're awake? Have some hot noodles. I just prepared them. I'm so sorry to trouble you." By the time they finished breakfast, the sun was rising in the east. After taking a sip of tea, the man glanced at Master Vong. "Thank you for letting me stay the night. I didn't bring much with me, but here is a little money. Please accept it." Saying so, he pulled out a few coins and pressed them into Master Vong's hand. Master Vong hastily stopped him. "You can't do that. It ruins the spirit of hospitality. You are a guest here, and I already feel guilty for not hosting you properly. How could I dare take your money? Please put it away. I insist. This isn't for the lodging. It's for the reading I asked of you yesterday." Master Vong smiled bitterly. "You're teasing this blind, old man again. I couldn't see anything yesterday. Please put it away. You're making this difficult for me. A promise is a promise. Since that's the case, please take care. We shall meet again." Carrying his knapsack, the man surnamed Deep bid farewell and walked straight out the gate. Vong thought they were just passing acquaintances who would never cross paths again. But exactly half a month later, the man unexpectedly returned. Unlike last time, he asked to stay for 3 days. In just those 3 short days, Master Vong's life was changed forever, taking a turn he could never have anticipated. Through their conversations, Master Vong learned that the man's trip had been successful. He had retrieved the lost family heirloom. Knowing there were taboos involved, Vong didn't dare ask too deeply, but he guessed it was an incredibly precious artifact. During his 3-day stay, Deep Tien Quan imparted a great deal of knowledge to Master Vong, both in medicine and the occult arts. Vong possessed high natural talent and had only lacked a proper master. He quickly absorbed everything. On the final day before leaving, the man specially gifted Master Vong several items. First were 2 ancient notebooks with yellowed, peeling covers. This is the Maoshan Secret Arts. It records many ancient spells, including talismans, corpse refinement, soul refinement, and spirit sealing. And this one is the Yellow Emperor's Inner Canon, the foundational text of Eastern medicine. If you study it diligently, it will be of great use. Master Vong reached out to take the books, but then he smiled bitterly. "I appreciate your good intentions, but these 2 books seem destined to be useless to me. As you can see, my eyes are blind, and the books are filled with ancient characters. Finding someone to translate them for me would be very difficult." Deep Tien Quan smiled. "Don't be hasty. I have one more thing to give you." With that, he took out a black skull from his bag. At first glance, it looked like a child's skull, but it wasn't. The top was slightly flattened, the chin protruded, and in the front were 4 large, dull, black teeth. "This is the skull of a monkey king. Inside are 2 demons that I have sealed. As long as you drip your blood onto it, they will recognize you as their master and obey your commands." Hearing this, Master Vong stammered. Until now, he had just been a lowly fortune teller and had never come into contact with such eerie things. "Why? Why are you giving this to me? I wouldn't know how to use it." "Don't be afraid. My purpose in giving this to you is not for you to do evil, but because I want your eyes to see again." "What did you say?" "You said this thing can help me see." "Exactly. This secret art is called the mind-reading eye, a low-level spell. As long as your soul merges with the 2 demons, whatever they see, you will see." These concepts were completely foreign to Master Vong, but anyone who practiced the Tao knew of them. This method was incredibly common for keeping tabs on someone from afar. For decades, Master Vong had lived in darkness. Knowing there was a hope of regaining his sight filled him with overwhelming joy and emotion. However, before transmitting the incantation, the man added a warning. "Before I teach you this secret art, you must swear a deadly oath. You must absolutely never pass it on to anyone else, and above all, you must never use it for evil. Other than that, rest assured, I am near the end of my life and don't have long left to live. Just seeing the light again before I die would make me content." After Master Vong swore the deadly oath, the man taught him the incantation, gave him a few more instructions, and finally bowed and bid farewell to return to his homeland. Holding the cold monkey skull in his hands, Master Vong still didn't dare believe it was real. Hearing that he could see the light again made his entire body tremble with emotion. That evening, after washing up and putting on his formal robes, Master Vong walked into the outer room and sat properly at the altar table. In front of him was the black monkey skull. In the darkness, the flickering light of the oil lamp cast upon it made it look even more demonic. His hands formed a seal, and Master Vong's mouth mumbled the incantation. A moment later, he took a small knife and made a clean slice across his palm. Drops of bright red blood seeped out and fell onto the monkey skull. In an instant, the blood drops vanished, and a terrifying scene unfolded. From the eye sockets, two streams of black smoke billowed out, converging in the air to form the shapes of two demons. One had the head of an ox, the other the face of a horse. They let out a guttural laugh that made the room feel gloomy and freezing cold. Heaven helps us. We've finally escaped that damn seal. Upon seeing that there was only a frail, old man with shallow cultivation before them, the horse-faced demon grew even more gleeful. So it's just a blind old fortune-teller. Excellent. We will eat his flesh and drink his blood to vent our anger. As it spoke, the demon lunged forward to devour Master Vong alive. However, when it was about half a meter away, countless red iron chains materialized around their spectral bodies. It was the seal left behind by Deep Tien Quan. The chains began to constrict, causing them to scream in agony. Only when they were completely exhausted did Master Vong finally speak. Now, will you two submit to me as your master? Though reluctant, the two demons had no choice but to obediently nod. We submit. We are willing to obey your commands. Very good. Now obediently hand over your soul contracts to me. The two demons knew clearly that once they handed over their soul contracts, they would permanently become slave demons, unless the old man died or their power grew strong enough to break the bond. From the top of their heads, a spirit orb the size of a Longan pit flew out, looking exactly like their true forms, and entered the space between Master Vong's eyebrows. In his consciousness, the old man clearly felt two lives vibrating. He now had the power to kill them in an instant. After merging the two soul streams into his consciousness, Master Vong executed the mind-reading secret art. When he opened his eyes, tears welled up. His vision had returned. He could see his wrinkled hands. He could see the familiar house he had lived in for so many years. Thank you, benefactor. Thank you, heaven and Buddha. Overcome with emotion, two streams of tears ran down his face as he collapsed to his knees, facing north and bowing repeatedly. For the next period of time, he rarely stepped outside. He kept his doors closed, studying the knowledge Deep Tien Quan had taught him. Before long, his abilities skyrocketed, elevating him to a masterful level in both medicine and the occult. However, no one knew that his sight had returned. He had no intention of revealing it. Gossip was a dangerous thing. Who knew what people would say about him? Some might sympathize and call him lucky, but many would undoubtedly suspect he used dark magic and raised in soldiers and evil spirits. Thus, he decided to keep it a secret. True to the Chinese master's words, his new eyes were far more miraculous than ordinary ones. His eyes could now see through objects, detect subtle energy fluctuations, and even read people's thoughts. After 3 continuous months of closed-door meditation, he finally stepped outside, still keeping his familiar blind appearance. Tapping his bamboo cane forward, he walked slowly down the village road. Seeing him from a distance, Mrs. Q hurriedly called out, "Master Vong, it's been so long since I've seen you. I heard you were gravely ill recently. Are you feeling better?" Master Vong smiled. "Thank you for asking, Mrs. Q. I'm better. Just the ailments of old age." "That's wonderful to hear. We had to go to the neighboring village to see Master Tuc recently. Now that you're well, our village can relax." "You flatter me. I am old and weak. I live today but could die tomorrow. I'll help the villagers for as long as I can. Well, I must be going." Tapping his bamboo cane gently, Master Vong strolled along. Suddenly, a panicked man ran towards him. He was in such a rush that he crashed right into Master Vong, making the master stumble and nearly fall. "Oh, Master, I'm so sorry. I'm in a rush. Are you all right?" Master Vong bent down, picked up his bamboo cane, dusted off his clothes, and spoke. "Who is it? It sounds like Thin. Where are you rushing off to like a ghost is chasing you?" "Good heavens, it would be better if a ghost were chasing me. At least I wouldn't lose money. What's wrong, tell me?" Opposite him, Thin was sweating profusely, his clothes disheveled. Panting heavily, he replied, "Master, this morning my buffalo broke loose and ran away. I've been looking for it everywhere all morning, but can't find it. I'm afraid someone might have let it away, so I'm running to the village cultural house to make an announcement on the loudspeaker. Anyway, I have to go." Thin was about to run off again when Master Vong said, "Wait. Stand there and let me do a reading for you." Thin waved his hand. "Oh, Master, I know you mean well, but this is about a lost buffalo, not a spiritual or ghostly matter that needs a reading. Rest assured, when I say I can help, I can help." Though he didn't know what Master Vong intended to do, Thin stayed out of politeness. Master Vong held out his hand, counting on his fingers, his eyes half closed as he mumbled softly. A moment later, he said, "Listen carefully. Your buffalo is in heat. It broke its rope, ran out toward the Chu River, and wandered into the old brick kiln area. Go there right now. If you wait any longer, it will run to another village and you won't find it." Hearing the master speak with such certainty, Thin stood dumbfounded, half believing and half doubting, but he nodded and ran off. When he reached the spot, he was astonished. Exactly as the master had said, his buffalo was there. It was bucking like a horse, snorting heavily, and continuously rubbing against the brick wall until it bled. Master Vong is truly a genius. He can even read where a lost buffalo went. That day, after returning home, Thin told his wife to take gifts over to Master Vong's house, 10 eggs and a tube of sticky rice, to thank him. Though a small event, it became a fascinating topic of gossip in the countryside. Some people admired Master Vong completely, saying he was even more powerful after his illness. Others thought it was just a lucky guess that happened to be right. But the very next day, those who doubted him had to reconsider. That was the case of Mrs. Nan at the end of the village. Before getting married, her parents had given her a pair of gold earrings as a dowry. She treasured those earrings, treating them as a keepsake, and carefully wrapped them up and locked them in a drawer. Yet, a month ago, when she checked the drawer, it was completely empty. She immediately suspected her husband, as he was prone to drinking and gambling. But tragically, no matter how many times she questioned him, he vehemently denied it. "I told you I didn't take them. I didn't take them. You gamble and drink, but at least dare to admit what you've done. Don't be a sneaky thief. Please, you and I have lived together for years, you know me. Yes, I've stolen our chickens and grain and pawned them at the gambling den many times. But what about this time? Well, you admit to that at least. But I swear to heaven, I really didn't take those earrings. If I took them, may I be struck dead on the street. Who would believe a gambler's oath? It's just you and me in this house. I didn't take them, you didn't take them. Do you think the earrings grew legs and walked away?" Recounting this, Mrs. Nan's eyes were red with tears. Looking at Master Vong, she sobbed, "Why is my life so miserable, Master? Marrying a husband who only drinks and gambles is bad enough, but whatever we have just disappears. He denies it all. You have sharp ears and eyes. Please help me look into it." Raising his fingers to calculate, Master Vong mumbled softly. A moment later, he said, "Your husband didn't take them." "What did you say, Master?" "I said your husband didn't take those earrings." "That's absurd. It's just the two of us. If he didn't take them, did a mouse take them? When you go home, check to see if there's a small hole behind your cabinet. A mouse went through that hole, dragged the cloth wrapping the earrings away, and buried them. Dig around the corner of your altar, and you will find them." Mrs. Nan was skeptical, but hurried home. Sure enough, after digging out the mouse hole, she found her gold earrings. This story spread like a whirlwind, causing a massive stir in Bong village. Those who had doubted the master's abilities the day before now bowed in absolute respect. The previous incident could be written off as a lucky guess, but Mrs. Nan's case was undeniable. Word spread from 1 person to 10, from 10 to 100. Before long, his fame reached neighboring communes and even spread across the province. It wasn't hard to understand why. In the following days, people flocked from all over, mostly coming to ask the master to find lost items. Not only was his fortune-telling incredibly accurate, but his medical skills also left people astounded. Some even compared him to a reincarnated Hua Ta. Previously, people only knew him as a blind old man who dispensed herbal medicine to treat simple colds and runny noses. But now, no matter how difficult the case, a quick check of the pulse was all he needed to know the root cause. The most memorable case was when he treated Tram, the daughter of Mr. Phuong from the provincial capital. Mr. Phuong was the owner of a large enterprise, but he and his wife had struggled with infertility and had only managed to have 1 daughter. Because of this, they spoiled her like a jewel. But recently, for some unknown reason, the young girl had contracted a strange illness. They took her to every major hospital, but to no avail. Upon hearing about the rising medical prodigy in Bong Village, the couple traveled all the way there. After stepping inside and sitting cross-legged on a bamboo mat, Mr. Phuong lowered his voice. "Greetings, Master. I am Phuong from the city. I came here today to ask you to examine my daughter. For some reason, over the last few months, her body has been pale and wasting away. She has no appetite. Especially in the middle of the night, she coughs violently, sometimes coughing up blood clots, and her entire body goes freezing cold. I've taken her to all the big hospitals, treated her with both Eastern and Western medicine, but her condition hasn't improved. In fact, it seems to be getting worse." Asking Mr. Phuong to lay the girl down on the bamboo bed, Master Vong stepped closer to check her pulse. In Master Vong's eyes at that moment, she was not just a pale, thin girl, but a complex network of meridians. He saw a strange black energy swirling within her body, specifically concentrated heavily around her windpipe. After about 3 breaths, the master withdrew his gaze, turned to Mr. Phuong and his wife, and said, "Your daughter does not have tuberculosis or lung cancer like the hospitals diagnosed. In reality, she has an ink-consuming worm parasite." "What did you say, Master?" "A ink-consuming worm." "Yes. It's a type of parasite that lives deep in the jungle, specifically inside dark limestone caves where sunlight never reaches year-round." Hearing this, Mr. Phuong and Mrs. Tui burst into tears. "Then that makes sense. A few months ago, during the holidays, we took her on a 3-day trip to the northwest, and we went exploring in limestone caves." Master Vong nodded. "It is very likely that during that trip, the girl accidentally swallowed the eggs of an ink-consuming worm. Once that thing enters the body, it continuously multiplies, clinging tightly to the windpipe and gradually sucking away her vital energy. Fortunately, you brought her here when you did. A few days later, and there would have been no cure. I beg of you, Master, please save our daughter. She's our only child. If anything happens to her, I won't be able to live." Tears streamed down Mrs. Phuong's face. "All right, calm down. This illness is actually not difficult to cure, but the important thing is to use the right medicine and the right method. Otherwise, the more you treat it, the worse it gets. If you use ginseng or antibiotics for this disease, the worm only gets fatter. You must use extreme yang to cure extreme yin. You just need to crush purple garlic, boil it with mugwort to make an herbal steam, and then mix an anthelmintic powder with sticky rice wine for her to drink. Do this continuously for a week, and she will be cured." Good heavens! Because of our ignorance, we kept buying ginseng and tonics and forcing her to drink them. No wonder she was getting worse. After instructing them on the medicine, Master Vong asked Mr. Phuong to help the girl sit up and gave her a drink. Just a moment later, the girl who had been lying limply suddenly sat up straight, clutched her chest, and coughed violently. A mouthful of black blood violently spewed from her mouth. Floating in that slimy puddle of blood was a parasite with a stark white head, covered in tentacles, writhing fiercely. As soon as the thing was vomited out, The girl's complexion immediately returned to a rosy hue, her breathing stabilized, and her body grew warm. Mr. Phuong and his wife joyfully embraced their daughter, thanking him endlessly. "Thank you, master. Our family owes you 1,000 thanks. All right, save the gratitude for later. Take the girl home now and give her the medicine regularly. Bring her back here in a week for me to check again." Exactly 1 week later, Mr. Phuong's family returned to Master Vong. Unlike their previous sad and desperate faces, this time the whole family was beaming. Tram looked completely reborn. In just a few short days, she looked like a new person, her complexion rosy and bright. "Congratulations. The girl's illness is completely cured. You can rest easy now." The story of that miracle spread rapidly, making Master Vong's reputation soar like a kite in the wind. Visitors from everywhere poured in. Some came for medical treatment, some for business advice, and others to ask about their political careers. Almost all of them had their requests met by the master. Except for those who came with evil intentions or bad motives, they were bluntly refused. The most memorable was the story of Hung One-Eye, a notorious gangster from the highlands. That day, he came to the master's house bringing a dozen of his henchmen. Every single one of them was covered in tattoos, with fierce, aggressive faces. Stepping inside the house with an arrogant glare, he looked at Master Vong and cleared his throat. "I hear rumors that the master has heavenly powers and knows everything. I traveled all the way here today to ask you for 2 small favors. First, I want you to read my fortune and see if my upcoming shipment will go smoothly. It's a massive deal, and I need to know in advance so I can prepare. And the second thing, recently, a mad dog has appeared in my territory, constantly getting in the way and ruining my business. I want you to eliminate him and send him to the king of hell by any means necessary. The quieter, the better." With that, he snapped his fingers. From behind, a henchman stepped forward and placed a black briefcase on the table. The lid flipped open, revealing thick stacks of US dollars. One would think Master Vong's eyes would widen at the sight of the money. But instead, the master's voice grew stern as he replied, "Brother Hung, I opened this shrine to do good deeds and spread blessings, not to do things that go against reason and heaven. Your shipment is contraband, and the money you make is dirty money. I will not accept a single penny. Take your money and go home. I will not help you with this." Hearing this blunt refusal, Hung One-Eye's face hardened instantly. He slammed his hand on the table. "Old man, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Whether you want to or not, you must help me today. And if I don't help you, what will you do?" "What will I do?" Hung turned to his henchman and laughed mockingly. "Have you forgotten who we are? We're the Mafia. If I want to, I have 1,000 ways to make you wish you were dead. In fact, we could smash this trashy shrine of yours right now." Opposite him, Master Vong sat motionless with his eyes half closed, acting as if he didn't care about the threat at all. Hung lost his patience and gritted his teeth in warning. "I'll give you one last chance. Are you going to help or not? Are you deaf? I said I won't help, and that means I won't help. Then let's see if your bones are as hard as your mouth. Boys, get him." Immediately, 2 tattooed thugs rushed forward. They intended to pin him to the ground and beat him a few times to teach him a lesson. But before they could even touch the master's clothes, both of them suddenly convulsed as if electrocuted. Their bodies shook violently as they fell backward, eyes rolling back, foaming at the mouth. "What's wrong with you two? Get up!" Hung One-Eye exclaimed in shock. Master Vong stood with his hands clasped behind his back, looking calm as if nothing had happened. Seeing this, Hung One-Eye boiled with rage. "All of you go." The remaining thugs, though scared, recklessly drew their daggers and charged. In less than 3 breaths, all of them were sprawled on the ground, in the exact same state as the first 2. "Impossible. What is he doing to them?" Hung One-Eye trembled, continuously backing away until his back hit the corner of the room. He had lived a life filled with murder, drinking blood, and eating flesh as if it were daily meals. But never had he felt fear like this. The fear wasn't because his men were beaten, but because he didn't even know how the old man did it. The old man had just been sitting still, not moving a muscle. Well, Do you still want to attack me? Hung, One Eye's face contorted in terror. He dropped his knife and fell to his knees. Master, I beg you. I know I was wrong. Please be generous and forgive me. Master Vong's face turned serious. Don't think that just because you have some dirty money you can act arrogant and do whatever you want. In this world, you must learn humility. There's always a higher mountain. Go home. Go home and prepare your funeral, or it'll be too late. What? What do you mean by that, Master? I told you to go home. A great disaster is coming for you. Sure enough, on his way back that day, Hung One Eye's car inexplicably lost control and crashed into a utility pole. The front of the car was completely crushed. Hung died instantly at the scene, and his henchmen were either killed or severely crippled. Master Vong's words had perfectly come true. Time flew by like a shuttle. 10 years had passed since that event, and Master Vong's fame continued to grow. Visitors flocked from all directions in increasing numbers, but his health, on the contrary, grew weaker by the day. Despite his heavenly medical skills, he could not escape the immutable laws of birth, aging, sickness, and death. For the past half-month, Master Vong had locked his doors to recuperate and refused all guests. Lying on his simple bed, his face was pale and haggard, his skin sallow, his breathing labored. He knew better than anyone that his time was running short. Going from a nameless, blind country fortune-teller to where he was today, he had lived a life that, logically, should have been fulfilling enough to die without regrets. But historically, the rich always cling to life, and the powerful fear death. Master Vong, wise his entire life, ultimately could not escape that cruel law. As the moment of death drew nearer, his survival instincts flared up. He didn't care about money, and he didn't need fame, but he didn't want to die. It was precisely this selfish desire to prolong his life by any means necessary that made him stray into the dark path before he even realized it. In the ancient book that Deep Tien Quan had given him long ago, there was a method for cultivating the soul to extend one's lifespan. However, this method had long been classified as a forbidden art, and no one practiced it anymore because it was barbaric, cruel, and went against the laws of heaven. The method was called the Yin Yang blood curse. To cultivate it, one had to continuously absorb souls and blood as materials. In the early stages, one could use the blood of chickens or low-level animals, but as the stages progressed, the requirements for materials grew higher, eventually requiring human blood for the final breakthrough. What was even more terrifying was that once someone started down this path, they could never turn back. Otherwise, their soul would go mad and violently explode, resulting in death. Looking back into the past, there had been quite a few who practiced it. Some even lived for several hundred years, but ultimately, none of them met a good end. Despite knowing this clearly, Master Vong could not resist the temptation. From that day on, whenever night fell, he would secretly go to his backyard and set up an offering table to lure hungry spirits. Tonight was the same. While all of Bong Village was asleep, a crude altar was secretly set up in the backyard. Under the flickering light of the oil lamp, the old man sat there, holding a small brass bell, ringing it softly while chanting Sanskrit incantations. A moment later, a horde of hungry spirits came rushing in. At this stage, they were mostly the spirits of low-level animals, cows, pigs, chickens, dogs, and cats of all kinds. Waiting for them to eat their fill, he then ordered the two demons to capture them all and rip away their souls. Day after day, these stealthy actions repeated, transforming him from a virtuous master into an evil demon without him even realizing it. However, if you walk in the dark long enough, you're bound to meet a ghost. Eventually, his actions were discovered. The person who discovered it was Mrs. Soan. That night, she had gone to the neighboring village to visit her daughter who had just given birth, and it was late when she returned. Walking past Master Vong's gate, she suddenly heard the ringing of a small bell and the faint sound of someone chanting as if praying. The sounds were very soft. If it were daytime, she certainly wouldn't have heard it. But now it was 11 p.m., and it was dead silent all around. Out of curiosity, she crept closer, tiptoeing around to the backyard. Peering through the light, a horrifying scene unfolded before her. Inside the dense, overgrown garden, under an old banana tree, was an altar. On it was a bowl of white rice, a boiled egg, and a mound of sticky rice and salt. At a glance, it looked like a normal offering for lonely ghosts. But his next action terrified Mrs. Soan. She saw him lift a rooster with one hand, slash its throat with a knife in the other, and let the fresh blood pour into a ceramic bowl. Then, he tilted the bowl back and drank the whole thing in one gulp. Under the dim light of the oil lamp, she saw his eyes glowing a fierce red, his mouth smeared with crimson blood. Terrified, she accidentally made a noise. At that same moment, Vong snapped his head around. His face at that moment looked exactly like a vicious, bloodthirsty demon. How could Mrs. Soan dare to stay? She let out a shriek, turned around, and bolted. Instantly, two demonic shadows chased after her and quickly caught up. But strangely, after that, there were no sounds or cries for help. Mrs. Soan still walked numbly back to her house, but her eyes were vacant, and she limped along as if someone were dragging her. Sure enough, the next morning, the people of Bong village received news that Mrs. Soan had died right in her bed. The cause was deemed to be sudden death from catching a cold while walking at night. However, they didn't know that she had actually died long before that, and the thing that had returned to her house the night before was just a cold, soulless corpse. After more than a month of cultivating the blood curse, Master Vong's health had visibly improved. His skin became taut and smooth, his wrinkles faded, and his steps were firm. He no longer looked like a man on the brink of death. The first stage of the Yin-Yang blood curse was complete. Moving into the next stage, animal blood was no longer enough. He needed human blood and higher-level souls. From then on, every night he secretly went to the village cemetery and set up the offering ritual, exactly as before. The only difference was that the spirits he lured this time were not animals, but the souls of the dead. All the wandering ghosts and hungry spirits, after coming to feast, were trapped and stripped of their spiritual essence. Once their souls were no longer intact, they could never enter the cycle of reincarnation, cursed to wander eternally in hunger and thirst. That was the barbaric, heaven-defying cruelty of this art. At the same time, strange things began happening in Bong village. Sometimes a house would catch fire, other times an incense bowl would mysteriously fall over. Eerie, ghostly sounds echoed from the cemetery every night. Most notably, many people began having the exact same dream. They dreamt of their ancestors appearing, telling them that their souls had been stolen by a wicked person. But when asked who it was, they couldn't speak, as if something was stopping them. Panicked and worried, the villagers sought out Master Vong, but his doors were tightly shut, claiming illness and refusing guests. His house grew increasingly gloomy and strangely cold. Even at high noon, anyone stepping inside would feel a chilling dread and an inexplicable sense of unease. The situation grew more severe when a strange plague broke out in the village. Cows, pigs, and chickens inexplicably dropped dead. In just one night, entire pens would be wiped out. Bong village was in near chaos. Mr. Dinh, the village chief, hastily summoned the elders, officials, and family heads of the village for a meeting to find a solution. Respected villagers, recently our Bong village has experienced many bizarre events the likes of which we have never seen. I fear that after this mass death of livestock, it might spread to people. That is why I have invited everyone here to discuss a response. Mr. Nam stood up and added, I think the village chief's approach is correct, but it's not enough. All the committees are present, but I see one crucial person missing, Master Vong. He has always held high prestige in our village. Especially regarding bizarre matters like this, he is the most knowledgeable and could offer the best advice. Mr. Dinh sighed. I know that, of course. Initially, I even intended for Master Vong to lead this meeting. However, I went to his house twice to invite him, and both times he shook his head and refused, saying he was gravely ill and didn't want to go to a noisy, crowded place. My hands are tied. The meeting proceeded. People took turns giving their opinions, but ultimately no consensus was reached. It wasn't until Mr. Veen, the oldest man in the village, stood up to speak. Respected villagers, according to my decades of life experience, there is definitely a spiritual element behind these events. And whenever it comes to spiritual matters, you must find a skilled master to help. The best choice would undoubtedly be Master Vong. But right now, he is severely ill and cannot help. So why don't we find someone else? I believe there are still many capable masters out there who can help our village. Mr. Dinh nodded. You make an excellent point. I completely agree with you. What does everyone else think? The villagers looked at each other and ultimately nodded in agreement. Very quickly, they traveled to the neighboring province and invited a quite famous master, Master Ma. Master Ma was about the same age as Master Vong, but his eyes were sharp, his hearing was keen, his health was robust, and he hailed from an orthodox lineage. After hearing Mr. Dinh's group recount everything that had happened, Master Ma nodded and concluded, "There's no doubt about it. This village is definitely possessed by a demon. However, as to the origin of this demon and why it's haunting this village, I will tell you all shortly." Master Ma requested that Mr. Dinh have someone clear a wide courtyard right in front of the village cultural house to set up a ritual altar. His decisive and professional demeanor gave the terrified villagers a sliver of hope. A square table was set up, draped with a red cloth. Once everything was arranged, Master Ma adjusted his robes, lit some incense, clasped his hands together, and mumbled obscure incantations. He then picked up 2 ancient copper coins to perform a yin-yang divination. Heaven has eyes, earth has ears, every wrong has its source, every debt has its debtor. I asked the local deities and spirits to light the way. Show me what evil entity is wreaking havoc on this village. With those words, he tossed the 2 coins into the air. They spun rapidly, clinking as they landed on the ceramic plate on the table. The eyes of all the villagers were fixed on them, holding their breath. The 2 coins came to a complete stop, both tails. Seeing this, Master Ma frowned. In divination, double tails is called a total yin hexagram, representing an absolute, impenetrable darkness, or indicating that some force was intentionally hiding the truth. Undeterred, he took a deep breath, gathered the 2 coins into his palm, and cast them a second time. The result was exactly the same. Master Ma's expression began to change. The atmosphere around the altar was as tense as a drawn bowstring. Impossible. He gritted his teeth, beads of sweat breaking out on his forehead under the crushing pressure of thousands of watching eyes. Gathering all of his spiritual focus, he cast the coins a third time. The result remained unchanged. The 2 cold coins lay face down, black as pitch, like 2 soulless eye sockets staring back at him. In his mind, there was not a single clue or image, only a thick, profound void of darkness. "How is it, Master? Can you see anything?" Master Ma wiped the sweat from his forehead and spoke honestly. "I'll tell you the truth. In all my decades of practice, I have never seen anything like this. This thing is too terrifying. It can blind the heavens and the earth, preventing me from seeing anything." "Then what do we do now?" "Don't worry, I still have a way. But it's not convenient to perform it with so many people around. First, ask everyone to step outside and shut the doors tightly." Once the crowd had left and all the doors were sealed shut, Master Ma took out a small clay jar from his bag. The outside was covered in gold talismans, and the lid was tightly sealed with a red cloth. Placing the jar on the table, he used a knife to slice his palm and drip blood onto the red cloth. As soon as the blood soaked in, the jar vibrated, and a pillar of red smoke billowed out, condensing into a spherical blood entity. "What is that?" Mr. Dinh recoiled. Master Ma answered with pride, "Don't be afraid. This is a spirit hound that I went through immense hardship to cultivate. Its sense of smell is incredibly sharp. It can sniff out any kind of demonic energy or miasma. Just watch." Following Master Ma's command, the spirit hound began pacing around, sniffing the air continuously. Finally, it stopped, facing the southeast, the exact direction of Master Vong's house. But right after that, for some unknown reason, its entire body suddenly convulsed. It tucked its tail and began to whimper in absolute terror. Master Ma was shocked. This spirit hound had always been fierce and aggressive. It had always fought evil spirits bravely and never retreated. Yet right now, whatever it saw had reduced it to a pathetic, whimpering state, like a dog in a mourning house. Master Ma felt both angry and embarrassed. No matter how much he urged it, it just tucked its tail and sat frozen in place. Left with no other choice, he recalled it into the jar and turned to Mr. Dinh. You saw it yourself. I tried my best, but I still cannot pierce the secrets of heaven. The entity haunting this village is too terrifying. This is beyond my abilities. I apologize. With that, he packed up his things and left without saying another word, leaving behind countless terrified and bewildered eyes. Sure enough, Mr. Dinh's earlier warning proved true. Following the deaths of the animals, it was now the people's turn. Every few days, someone in the village would die. Most notably, the condition of their deaths was identical. They died at night and were only discovered by their families the next morning. All the deaths were incredibly peaceful. The victims never made a single sound or cry. In some cases, a family member sleeping right next to them didn't even notice until morning, when they saw the body stiff and cold and began screaming in horror. Initially, everyone thought it was a new, strange plague. But upon closer analysis, there were too many illogical points. All the victims were young, with healthy organs and no underlying conditions. Why would they suddenly die overnight? The true cause was only uncovered after the forensics team stepped in. After cutting open the bodies, they discovered something extremely abnormal. There was not a single drop of blood left in any of the corpses. It was as if something had sucked them completely dry. Examining the hearts, they were even more shocked to find the imprint of 4 teeth, the size and shape resembling an adult human's bite. Using all the logic of science and professional expertise, they could not explain it. If a serial killer had done this, how did he get inside when the doors were locked tight? How did he strike without making a single sound? It was entirely impossible, completely illogical. It went far beyond what any normal human could do. That was from the perspective of the investigators. But for the people of Bong Village, they knew what it was, they just couldn't say it. Because they knew if they spoke up, these investigators wouldn't believe them and wouldn't accept it. After more than a month of grueling investigation, Officer Min and his task force had found absolutely no clues. Every crime scene was wiped clean, and not even the police dogs could pick up a scent. The case was hitting a dead end. Every few days, another person died. It was as if the killer was mocking them, disregarding both him and the law. Countless tactics were deployed: patrols, ambushes, undercover officers acting as bait, but ultimately, nothing worked. Left with no choice, he expanded the scope of the investigation, refusing to rule out the possibility of the occult and dark magic. Immediately, all occult practitioners in the district were listed, and Master Vong was no exception. He sent people directly to each house to investigate. If anyone seemed suspicious, they would be placed under secret surveillance. It wasn't hard to see why Master Vong was placed at the very bottom of the list. Min's team assumed he was just a sickly, blind old man with one foot in the grave. That afternoon, Officer Min and a fellow policeman went to Master Vong's house. Outwardly, they were just there for a check-in, but in reality, they were investigating. Like anyone else, as soon as he crossed the gate and entered the house, Officer Min immediately felt an unusually cold atmosphere. "Master Vong, are you home?" He knocked lightly on the wooden door and called out. A moment later, from inside the house, a hunched old man with pale, wrinkled skin groped his way out. "Who is it? What brings you to find me?" "Hello, Master. I'm Min, an investigator from the Provincial Task Force. I've come here today to ask a few questions. I hope you will cooperate." Hesitating for a few seconds, Master Vong nodded and invited the 2 men inside. For some reason, the moment he stepped in, the hairs on Min's arms stood up, and he smelled a faint, musty, metallic scent. He scanned the room. On the altar, incense was still smoldering, filling the space with a thick smoke. Master Vong was currently fumbling around to brew tea, not noticing that Officer Min's eyes were glued to the bedroom door. For some reason, When his gaze landed there, his intuition told him that room was not normal. There was something shady about it. "Please, have some water." "Thank you, master." Officer Min reached out to take the cup. However, at that exact moment, he noticed an anomaly. Those wrinkled, bony hands were freezing cold, exactly like a corpse. With extraordinary composure, Officer Min maintained a calm expression. After taking a small sip of tea, he said, "Recently, there have been many strange occurrences in Bong village. I'm sure you've heard." Master Vong nodded. "Though I am blind, I am not deaf. I know everything that has happened. Ask whatever you wish to ask." Officer Min didn't beat around the bush. "From an investigator's perspective, we initially thought these victims were murdered by a cold-blooded killer. But the investigation hit a dead end. We haven't found a single clue. Because of that, we've expanded our scope, and we're not ruling out someone using the occult or dark magic. What do you think about this? If you ask me directly, I won't hesitate to tell the truth. I think the exact same thing. Bong village has always been peaceful. For all these things to suddenly happen, there must be a reason. So in your opinion, what is the real cause?" "Demons. This village is possessed by a demon. If it's not destroyed quickly, no one in this village will survive." Master Vong spoke loudly and clearly, a firm assertion that surprised Officer Min. "How do you know that? Do you have any evidence?" If you stubborn people keep trying to find scientific evidence to explain spiritual matters, it's like searching for a needle in the ocean. You will never find it. Officer Min knew the old man wasn't lying. For over a month, he and his colleagues had used every investigative method, but hadn't found a single trace. The culprit acted like a ghost, vanishing from the world after committing a crime. "Since you know the cause, do you have a solution?" "If it were before, I would be absolutely certain I could subdue those two demons. But now I am old and weak. My magical power has waned. I am powerless." "Wait, you said two." "That's right. I've known for a long time that this village isn't haunted by one demon, but two. They escaped from an ancient tomb. That's all I know." After asking a few more questions, Officer Min and his subordinate stood up and took their leave. However, as soon as they returned to the station, Min immediately assigned men to monitor Master Vong's house 24/7. At first, everyone was surprised, but after hearing Min's analysis, they understood. He suspected that the old man wasn't actually blind, but just pretending. During their conversation, Min had purposely tested him multiple times by constantly moving his teacup. Yet every time, Vong poured exactly into the cup without spilling a single drop. Right before leaving, Min had deliberately left his keys on the table, and Master Vong had called them back and pointed exactly to where they were. Even if he wasn't sure if the old man was the killer, he was certain that the old man was hiding a dark secret he didn't want anyone to know. At the same time, the villagers of Bong village were traveling everywhere trying to find masters to help. Some shook their heads and refused as soon as they heard the story. Others agreed to try but ended up being completely useless. Such was the case with Master Fong from Nam Dinh. At first, he didn't want to get involved, but after seeing the massive sum of money offered, his greed took over and he wanted to test his skills. Just like Master Ma before him, after casting the divination coins 3 times, he couldn't see a thing. Normally, if a divination fails 3 times, you must stop, but he broke the rule and stubbornly tried a 4th time. The result? He violently coughed up blood right on the spot, collapsed to the ground, and fell into a deep coma. This event pushed the people of Bong village into total despair. Now, there was no one left who could help them. Some people, too terrified for their lives and their families, didn't dare stay any longer. They packed their clothes and fled to other regions, waiting until things settled down to return. During the day, the village was a chaotic scene of people rushing about. At night, every household bolted their doors tight. Tonight, it was the same at Mr. and Mrs. Ju's house. Ever since the incident started, as soon as the sun set, they locked their doors, bolted them, and tied them shut with thick ropes from the inside. The couple didn't dare sleep at the same time, instead taking turns keeping watch. It was late into the night. Outside, everything was dead silent, save for the occasional croak of a frog. By the bed, Mrs. Ju was sitting huddled, too afraid to sleep, while her husband, exhausted, had drifted off. For some reason, she felt deeply unsettled tonight. Her intuition screamed that something terrible was about to happen. Sure enough, moments later, she heard dogs howling from behind the house, and the air around them turned gloomy and freezing cold. She was about to wake her husband so she wouldn't be so scared, when she jolted in terror at the sight of something flying through the ventilation window into the house. When she saw it clearly, she froze in horror. It was a pitch-black skull. Its two eye sockets glowed a blood-red hue, and its jagged teeth protruded menacingly. Before she could even scream, the skull lunged right at her. Almost instantly, the world spun, and she fell unconscious. The next morning, the village learned that both husband and wife were dead. They died with their eyes wide open in terror, their bodies completely dried up, without a single drop of blood left. That night, Officer Min's men had been keeping watch right outside Master Vong's gate, and they hadn't seen him step foot outside. At the crime scene, Min's men could only sigh in frustration. "Boss, what if we're looking in the wrong direction and suspecting the wrong guy? We watched his house all night, and he didn't step out once. He can't be the killer." Min clenched his fists. "Even if he's not the killer, there's at least some secret he's hiding. Starting tonight, you guys need to watch closer. Don't just watch the gate. Sneak up to his bedroom window every night and see exactly what he's doing in there." Following the plan, two officers, Fuck and another, waited until the lights in the house went out before climbing over the wall to approach the bedroom. Peering inside under the dim moonlight, they saw Master Vong sleeping soundly, a peacock-patterned blanket draped over him. The two men looked at each other and quietly retreated to their hiding spot. What they didn't know was that the moment they turned away, Master Vong rolled over and sat up, a sinister smirk on his face. Gently lifting his pillow, he pulled out a black skull. Stroking it gently, he smiled, and his dry voice rasped, Go fetch blood for me." As soon as he spoke, the monkey skull vibrated, quickly shot out, and vanished into the pitch-black night. By the time it returned, dawn was just breaking, but it was no longer black. It was dyed a gruesome reddish-brown, reeking of heavy, sickening blood. Officer Min's team had severely underestimated Master Vong, or rather, they understood nothing about dark magic. They assumed that a killer needed to be present at the crime scene to commit murder. But they were wrong. The sheer terror of dark magic is beyond what ordinary people can imagine. A practitioner can kill someone from hundreds of miles away without a soul knowing, leaving absolutely no physical trace. In the following days, the nightmare continued to blanket Bong Village. One by one, people lost their lives, while the killer remained untouched by the law. It wasn't until one day, when a horrific event occurred, that everything was finally brought to light. That night, just like any other, Officer Min's team split up to patrol the village streets. Suddenly, they saw the sky over the cemetery glow a bright red, accompanied by an earth-shattering roar. Suspecting something was wrong, his team quickly grouped up and rushed toward the light. The closer they got, the heavier the pressure became. The air around them felt compressed, and a foul, bloody stench rose from all directions, as if the entire village were about to drown in a sea of blood. When they arrived, they were shocked to see Master Vong standing there. In front of him was an altar, bearing a large basin of blood, next to a black skull. His eyes were wide open, his hair disheveled, continuously weaving bizarre magical seals with his hands. A moment later, the skull levitated into the air and began to spin rapidly. Rings of blood-red light shot out from it, penetrating right into the master's forehead. At the same time, his body began to transform. His white hair turned black, and his wrinkled, rough skin became taut and rosy. Witnessing this with their own eyes left Officer Min horrified. The man was literally growing younger right in front of them, something they couldn't have imagined even in their wildest dreams. "Vong, stop right now. You're under arrest." Ignoring the stern warnings and the dry barrels of the guns pointed at him, Vong poured all his focus into completing the spell. "Vong, I'm warning you, stop, or we will use lethal force." After repeating the warning 3 times with no effect, Min had no choice but to order two subordinates to move in. But before they could even get close, a beam of blood-red light shot from the skull, blasting the two men backward. They crashed to the ground, unconscious. Realizing the situation was spiraling out of control, Min gritted his teeth and ordered, to ensure everyone's safety, "Ready. Fire." Deafening gunshots rang out, shaking the entirety of Bong village. Every bullet hit its mark. Master Vong's body was riddled with holes. His clothes were torn to shreds, reeking of burnt gunpowder. Yet he still stood there. What was even more horrifying was that not a single drop of blood flowed from the wounds. It was as if they had just shot a living corpse. Despite his iron will, Officer Min broke out in a cold sweat, not knowing what the thing standing before him was. Was it still human? Or had it become a monster? "Keep shooting. Stop wasting your breath. Bullets can't kill me because I am immortal." The old man threw his head back and laughed maniacally, his voice filled with madness and absolute ecstasy. Wiping his sweat, Officer Min frantically ordered his men to fall back for their safety. Tonight was the final moment of Master Vong's breakthrough in the Inyang blood curse. If the blood core was completed, he would achieve immortality. Hand seals continued to be formed rapidly. The skull spun faster and faster, and the basin of blood was nearly sucked dry. Looking at him now, he appeared to be a middle-aged man in his 30s, having regained decades of youth in an instant. But just at the critical moment of his breakthrough, for some inexplicable reason, the skull began to slow down, and then stopped entirely. Vong was shocked. No matter how much he urged it, it wouldn't budge. "What is this? Why did the formation stop? You two. Where are you two? Help me immediately." Min's men had no idea who he was talking to, until two pillars of black smoke shot out of the skull, coalescing into the ox-headed and horse-faced demons. But unlike their usual cowering and submissive demeanor, they now looked at him with eyes full of contempt and mockery. "Why are you two standing there? Help me rotate the formation to break through the final step." They stood completely still, acting as if they hadn't heard him. "Are you rebelling? Do you believe I won't shatter your souls into pieces?" They laughed a guttural laugh. "Try it." Just as he was about to strike, he realized to his horror that the seal previously placed on them had been broken at some point. Even the soul contracts he held had completely vanished. "Impossible. This cannot be. From beginning to end, we never considered you our master. You are just a pawn, a sacrificial lamb being used. No, that's impossible." As soon as he shouted that, he collapsed, violently coughing up a mouthful of black blood. His face rapidly turned pale, reverting back to his previous, withered, old appearance. That was the terror of the blood curse. Once started, it could not be stopped, or the practitioner would suffer a horrific backlash. "No, I will not accept this. I don't want to die." Blood poured endlessly from his 7 orifices and the bullet holes in his body, along with flickering lights like phosphorus. All of it was sucked right back into the skull. Master Vong died kneeling, his head slumped over, his body completely dried out without a single drop of blood left, ending a life filled with countless ups and downs. From start to finish, Officer Min and his team could only watch in stunned silence. Everything that had happened tonight felt like a nightmare, a terrifying nightmare he never wanted to remember. After drinking its fill of blood and absorbing the soul essence, the skull spun in the air and shot off, vanishing into the pitch-black night. Far, far away in the Yunnan region of China, inside a deep, secluded mansion, a white-bearded old man sat in meditation. Surrounding him was a massive altar filled with magical artifacts, command flags, and countless intricately carved talismans. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew in, carrying a heavy scent of fresh blood that made the candles around the altar flicker. The old man's eyes shot open, flashing with ultimate joy. "It's here. The day has finally come." That man was none other than Deep Tien Quan, the 9th-generation descendant of the Deep family, the very man who had stayed at Master Vong's house 10 years ago. Only, his demeanor now lacked its previous ethereal quality. Instead, it radiated a sinister cunning. As soon as he spoke, a black sphere shot in and landed neatly in his sleeve. From inside, the two demons crawled out, bowing fearfully. Reporting to the master, "The mission you assigned us is complete. Please inspect it." Very good. It turned out that from the very beginning, all the earth-shattering events in Bong Village were part of a malicious plot he had painstakingly woven. Inside the Mao Shan secret arts book, there was actually no such thing as the Yin-Yang blood curse. Deep Tien Quan had deliberately added it to tempt Master Vong. Deep Tien Quan craved immortality, but he knew the consequences, which was why he went through the immense trouble of traveling all the way to Vietnam to find a scapegoat. Master Vong catching his eye wasn't a fateful encounter. It was a calculated choice. He saw that Vong had the intelligence to absorb everything he taught, but also enough ambition to commit acts that defied heaven. Master Vong, wise his entire life, ultimately turned out to be nothing but a pawn, a sacrificial piece in a rigged game. Deep Tien Quan stepped forward, his bony hands caressing the monkey skull, which was now brimming with blood and essence. His eyes glinted with a fanatical greed. "With this, I will achieve immortality. The day the Deep family rises to glory and becomes kings and emperors is not far off." However, Deep Tien Quan didn't know that the moment the skull flew back, someone in another hidden room had also sensed it. The mortal enemy of the Deep family, the Bok family. The two families had been fighting in the shadows for generations, secretly placing spies to watch each other. "We must obtain that object at all costs. Otherwise, the Bok family will never see the light of day again." A patriarch's voice echoed in a solemn hall of the Bok family. Upon learning that Deep Tien Quan was about to break through the blood curse, the Bok family could not sit still and wait for death. They resolved to take the skull at any cost, or at least destroy it. Just a few days later, as the morning sun shone down, the sprawling mansion of the Deep family was reduced to ashes. However, not a single person was seen. Scattered across the green brick courtyard were only pools of blood, torn talismans, and shattered artifacts. In that bloody battle, both families suffered mutually assured destruction. The dead were dead, and the heavily wounded survivors fled far away, hiding their identities. As for the skull, it was lost. It vanished without a trace, and no one ever heard of it again. Back in Bong Village, after the night of terror in the cemetery, the storm gradually passed, returning peace to the poor countryside. Officer Min's team decided to cover up the information about Master Vong's dried-up corpse, closing the bizarre case forever, leaving it as an anomaly that could never be scientifically explained. Time passed in the blink of an eye, and decades faded away. But deep in the memories of the village elders, the story of Master